The plant that in Spanish is all called malva, you guys identified it, is growing a lot more, but it's very good. But unfortunately, the two hens that have been living here, they are gone. And we figured out why. The electric net around this was connected, but it was connected in the wrong way. And so the net did not really have electricity. So instead of being connected down here, it was connected up there. And for some unknown reason, when you connect it up on this part, the rest does not receive electricity. So there must be a damage somewhere. And of course, if you are not in the habit of always checking, which is something we need to learn, then bad things can happen. And so some ground predator came and took away the two hens. So inside there are only a few feathers and the hens are gone. Now for the chicken project, that definitely means we need to be very careful and likely have someone else looking after the chicken, in addition to something like an electric fence. So we need to figure this out before we actually can have a lot of chickens, because it would be a shame to get some 300 chicken started in a mobile tractor and then you come back the next morning and you find them gone. Donkeys are high on the list, and there is a type of donkey here that is kind of at the risk of extinction. It's called the Asno Andalus, and in the bigger town, or near the bigger town, Cordoba, it's some 120 kilometers away from here, there is some sort of a donkey sanctuary, and I need to touch base with them and see whether we can help them and help us by taking a donkey from them and provide the donkey a new home here and a new job. So this is another consideration that we are thinking about, because it would be a real shame. But that's what you get when you try to do things in a place where there's nothing else around. So I don't blame the predator who took the two hens. Predators have to eat as well. So here we have Mr. Cat, who likes attention. And in there we have some very interesting looking grass. So this is how it can be. This is also an interesting crop. Welcome back to Granja Caimito and the Pedroche Valley of Andalusia, Spain, where spring finally has sprung for real. In between the many other tasks, the guys are setting the thicker fence posts in H and L shape so that we can eventually fence in this whole area with wire mesh so that it's prepared for the pigs. And then we will create little corrals in here step by step, but first we will place something with electric fencing. 2 strands of polywire seem to be enough after they have been trained. So here we have another of these thick fence posts, and the 2 on the ground will make the bracket on each side. And I'm going to turn around. You can see that over there is one left of the stone. That is because the trajectory changes there, and then it goes to the one that you see in the background there. What is then left to do is to find a trajectory for this line. The fence posts that we had there before, they kind of marked the way, but of course this time we want to do this in such a way that we can tension the wire mesh, so it has to be extremely straight, which is why the guys are putting out a string to see what exactly the trajectory is. So there will be the need for a single fence post to change the trajectory 2 or 3 degrees. We do recover dead animals from the field and put them here for recycling onto a compost pile. This will be covered with some straw, and then the nutrients find their way back into the soil. The whole idea is not to export nutrients as long as there is no abundance. And when there is abundance, then we can start shipping actually a product. And even a dead animal is part of the nutrient cycle on farm. Those bushes of grass, again, are a very good example of what can be. So someday the whole place has grass like that. At least that is what I hope for. But I have a feeling that it is possible. This is where we had the watermelons before. And before the watermelons, we were cutting the biomass for mulch in order to make soil. And this time, that is what we get. And of course we had the horses here too, but this is just because of the activity and because the soil was a little bit looser to start with, because the backhoe was here forming this platform. And if I go here, you can see also something very interesting, and it's really astonishing, because this grass is already going to seed. And we are just at the beginning of April. It's so tall that it almost swallows that bush. Our garlic is coming along nicely. Now I wish we had done a lot more of this. So we will be doing that. Need to motivate my family. Next autumn is the moment to add more of the garlic. The plan here is to prepare this area so that the horses can go in next week, but that plan should probably wait, or maybe not, it depends. So this should not be a paddock. So the grasses that are going to seed here, we don't really want more grass seed in this area, we want the grass seed elsewhere. So I'm unsure about what to do. I will make up my mind between now and next week, and then we will see. But in general, when we bring in the horses here, we put a poly wire around the trees so that the horses will not try to nibble on them, but instead focus on the grass, and they happily do. They understand that message. In comparison to other animals, they are a little bit more careful, and that is why we like to use the horses in here. And the manure is also richer, so it also helps this place along. It's a bit late in the day, but you can definitely see how tall the mustard and also the grasses in between are. So the horses have been here last, but it's already a while ago, and now we won't bring them in, hoping that we can preserve some of the grass for the chicken once we have them. Of course, first the mobile chicken coop has to be finished, and there are so many other things. But this is how it looks like. The Palovnia trees are hardly visible, but they are there, and they are also resprouting. But the trees in here are a bit slower than elsewhere because it is colder in this area. And speaking about colder, we definitely should have some sort of a windbreak here along this wall, because from over there we get some chilly wind. We should have considered this. And now the big question is, what can we do here to provide a windbreak so that the palovnias in early spring and late autumn won't be hit by this wind? That would help them along. Of course, this might be different once they are grown, but at the moment we can clearly see that they are lagging behind, and last autumn they were the first ones to lose their leaves. So maybe you guys have suggestions. Of course, the palovnia tree is the fastest growing in the world. The fastest growing tree in the world. So I don't know. Maybe we could create a structure, but that would not be a natural element. Let's see. The trees that we have planted there are resprouting. Let's have a look around how they all look like. The horses are always curious when they see me doing something. Maybe it's for us, they might think. Below the vetiver that is stabilizing the platform, we have this growing. The greywater pond has been filling up with rain and the grey water from the house. And soon, when the temperatures are a little bit higher, we are looking for 10 centigrades during the night, we will harvest the vetiver that is there at the outflow from the pond into the ditch where we have more vetiver. The idea is to use the vetiver to clean the grey water and turn it into pristine and healthy water that you can even drink. The whole pond will be lined with vetiver in several rows, so that there are enough roots to do the work. We may even try to make a float and have the vetiver inside the water, which is possible. This is paddock A15. It was grazed 10 days ago. The giant cabbage in here has gone to seed, which is quite nice to see how its cycle look like. And soon we will have some piglets in here. This time we are trying to step up our game of mob grazing. And so I showed the guys how to make very small sectors. They are eventually just 1000 square meters in size, and that creates a mob with the low number of bovines that we have. But I expect a lot more impact. I have been sent on a scouting mission to see where the animals should graze next. We do have a plan, but the thing is to check the plan with the reality on the ground. And there's something interesting to show. So over there we have a part of the little ones, and they like to go wherever they please, which is okay because they're not foraging that much, so they are not screwing up the plan. But it's still a problem, because they are supposed to respect the fencing, but then they don't, because they have to learn about that, and being young ones, they just think, oh, I can jump through, and they jump through the wires. So we tolerate this at the moment. Of course, there would be a way to add more strings of polywire, have the neutral in place and all that. But as eventually we will have this all pig safe, and that means we have a physical wire mesh with some electrical elements. This will then be a non-issue in the future, and for the moment they are not really doing any damage. They might destroy one of the polywires and then we fix it, but that's about it. But just something to keep in mind. The young ones do not always do as being told, and that applies to young animals as well, but it's not a big issue. In the areas where there was a lot of disturbance lately, the mustard and also the other forage is growing a lot taller than it used to. So that's a very positive improvement. And is it good to compare with other techniques? This is the neighbor who has tilled and seeded. Now with better light, you can see a little bit better how that looks like. So it is nice, definitely. And then across from it on our end, or on our side, we have that. And we have not seeded here. This is just a result from animal action and the existing seed bank. Here in this place we had pigs and cows, more than once. And that is what we have now. This area A1 also has a pond in there, and I mentioned a few times that we're going to plant things on the berm of this pond at the edges, but what I wanted to show you is that we have a lot of volunteers that have shown up, just like in the other pond. This, by the way, is quite helpful to see how tall things have grown. Of course, the other side of this fence here is the pig enclosure, and nobody has been grazing in there, but it's about how tall the plants can be. So here we have the herd. They are resting because they mostly have filled their rumen already. We only gave them a small portion of this paddock to begin with. Of course, the little ones are able to slip under that single strand of polywire, but I guess you can see the polywire. So that is in order to create a mob and make sure that everything gets eaten or trampled in order to feed the animals and to feed the soil. Of course, this only works for a while, and some human supervision is required. But at the moment, the guys are doing something else, and everybody behaves well. So in a very short while, that polywire there in the background gets moved, and later when the guys leave, then this whole thing will be open, because then it doesn't matter that much anymore. So we get some of the effect with a larger herd, and that is why we are trying to breed and not sell anyone or remove for any reason. Then the paddock size will create the mob. So that is how we try to play this. Okay, so let's get this polywire removed, and then they can come through. They're already looking forward to it, so they know how the game is played. And this is where they're going next. That's the next strip, and the strip ends right there, shortly after the tree line. And as you can see, they are simply moving forward to the next part. And after that, there will be another part. The same game was played yesterday in this section, and it came out well. The only downside is that here, for example, they have not trampled all that. It's those brassicas. They don't like to eat them either. So with a larger mob, with less space for each animal to move around, this would certainly have been destroyed by trampling. But okay, it's not perfect. But still, we are getting the effect. So I am not disappointed at all. It is working. And with more animals, I believe it will be even better. It is not yet completely done, but at least the guys added another post and a few elements to make a gate, so that we have an entrance to A5 and A6 individually before we had to move the divider around. Slight improvement, step by step. And by the way, that sun up there is already pretty harsh. So it is now 25 centigrades in the shade, and the night temperatures are still single digit, so we are expecting 9 degrees at night. And then 25 centigrades during the day again. So these huge temperature swings are very normal here in this area, and that is why we have a little bit extreme conditions. And in the sun I am sweating, because there's so much energy coming from the sun, as it's almost vertical. That is different than in continental climate, in places like the Netherlands or Germany, so Northern Europe. The area here between the actual perimeter fence and our, like I used to call it, the biosecurity fence, this is off limits for grazing, but there is a plan to use the sheep, for example, and let them in here. The problem with the sheep is, if we have the other side fenced like that, they will also jump in there. So for the time being we cannot really do that. But once we have a wire mesh on that side, then we can definitely do this. So at some point we will start making the animal lanes pig safe, and that also means small ruminant safe. And then we can do these additional tasks. So there is a mid-term plan how to build all that fencing in several phases based on need, demand and available resources. There is absolutely no intention to do this in one swoop. It is on purpose, and it might seem a little bit strange, and it might seem we are doing the same work several times. Yes, we kind of do, but then that's like paying interest. So when you take out a loan, you can do something right away, because now you have the big chunk of money, and then over several years you pay small amounts. Or you can do this debt-free and just build things as you have money available. So it's a question whether you want to exchange time for money or the other way around. That was it for today. Please come back in a few days to see what else spring is bringing.